Oh, I'm echoing a bit. Am I echoing? Um, yeah, that's a little strange. If this is your first Bridge Club, the Bridge Club is the very first video-based community. It was created specifically by the beautiful woman in the lavender jacket and I. We're little twinsies with our turtlenecks today, because we wanted to connect the industry in a different way. We wanted to connect, engage, learn, and grow together. And in this day and age of technology, where we focus all of our time here, we're forgetting to focus our time here. So today's conversation is going to be a good one. I have been fortunate to know Ryan for some time, but this is actually the first time I've ever seen Ryan's face. So that just shows how things are changing. So with that in mind, today we're going to talk about the lessons learned from Hurricane Harvey, but not how you think we're going to talk about them. So that's what makes this even better. So it is with my esteemed pleasure to introduce Ryan Buck, who is the president of the Gulf Coast Veterinary Specialists in Houston, and he can tell his story. So Ryan, I'm going to turn it on over to you.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Catherine. And before we get started, I'd like to have everyone raise a glass at a toast, and I'd like to toast Brenda and Catherine for coming up with such a wonderful idea. I understand this is the 8th installment of the Bridge Club. This is the first one I've been to, but thank you so much for inviting me, and a toast to all of you for spending time with me this morning to learn a little bit about the story of Gulf Coast and Hurricane Harvey. So cheers.
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 Okay. So I just want to give a little bit of background about myself, first of all. So I'm a group president for Compassion First Pet Hospitals. I have responsibility for 9 specialty and ER hospitals in Texas, which include San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, and Austin. I joined GCVS in 2012, which at the time I had responsibility for 4 of the services at Gulf Coast. Gulf Coast was one of those hospitals that had multiple businesses within the same location. And so between 2012 and 2016, we opened up Mission Veterinary Specialists in San Antonio, and then Austin Veterinary Emergency and Specialty Center in Austin, and then acquired an emergency clinic in Houston. And then in 2016, July of 2016, we joined Compassion First Pet Hospitals. And so just a little bit about Compassion First in case you guys don't know about Compassion First. So Compassion First was founded in September of 2014 by John Payne. And now it's a network of 37 hospitals across the country. And really the focus is medical outcomes and collaboration with the overarching goal of becoming the Mayo Clinic of Veterinary Medicine. It's primarily specialty and ER hospitals. There are some general practices as well, but the focus has primarily been specialty and ER. And so then now drilling down a little bit into GCVS, Gulf Coast Veterinary Specialists, for those of you unfamiliar with that hospital, which is really where I'm going to focus today. Gulf Coast is in Houston. It was founded in 1989, one of the first referral-only veterinary hospitals in the country. So it was 2 locations. There's a 54,000 square foot hospital, which is the largest hospital in Texas, 24/7, 365 patient care, and then also about a 6,000 square foot hospital that was neurology and neurosurgery only. We have 13 specialties, about 60 doctors across the 2 locations, and 200 staff members. And on August 27th, 2017, our hospital completely flooded from Hurricane Harvey. And the hospital had flooded in the past, and it's always been a couple of times. It's been minor. You know, we've had to cut out some drywall, and it's been inconvenient, you know, a couple of inches on the ground. And this was different. So this was, you know, water coming all the way to the ceiling on 2 floors, effectively the entire hospital underwater. And not just water coming up, water coming down, everything got wet, but then we, you know, kind of dried out and moved on. This was more like a turbulent washing machine that occurred within the hospital. So very soon after we had to evacuate the hospital, we were able to, you know, assess it and it was a complete loss. So all of the equipment, CT, MRI, linear accelerator, 4 brand new ultrasound machines, everything completely gone. 239 employees displaced. And so, I want to pause here and just kind of pose a question to the group. When you get this news and you go through kind of like day-to-day status quo, operating the hospital to everything's gone. What do you think, what would be your first priority? What would be the first thing that you might think about in this situation? So I'll just kind of put that out there to anyone, any ideas.
And you all can unmute your line. You don't have to be muted. We've had a no muting policy today.
It's hard to respond when you're muted, right? Yeah. So
it's very hard.
Speak up, yeah.
So what do you think a priority might be for us in this situation?
I'll get the conversation. To me, I would think first of my family and how this was going to impact my family and their day-to-day lives.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any other ideas?
I would go money. I mean, immediately I would go, well, how am I going to pay my bill? Like, I would be selfish first. I hate to say that. I wouldn't probably think of everyone else. And I would think, how am I going to pay my bills? I would be devastated.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
I guess it's assuming all the animals came out okay. I mean, there wasn't any problem. That's one thing I would think about is making sure that they're all safe and in good places, especially in an ER or somebody that has continuous care, because some of them you can't just put in a car and go someplace with.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And all these ideas are dead on, and certainly were contemplated, in various moments during and after this happened. As the leaders of the organization, our intense focus immediately became our people. We've always, for forever before this happened, we would tell our people and the other leaders within our organization that Gulf Coast is not a building. Gulf Coast is not the fancy equipment in there. Even though when you walk into our hospital, and granted I have a bit of a biased view, it does feel like a human hospital. And clients, have said that and commented on it. And then as they walk back and see the patient care that's occurring, they think it even more so. But Gulf Coast is about the people, and we've never been tested with sort of that message to our people more so than we did in the days and weeks that followed this event. So we knew we had to do everything to retain our people. When you think about it, 90% of our hospital space was gone. And we need hospital space to keep our people employed and to keep them busy. But one of the first things that we did was we made a statement to our people that we were going to continue to pay them, that we're going to pay 100% of their wages that they were getting paid prior to Hurricane Harvey. So all the hourlies, all the salaried employees, all the doctors, the techs, the receptionists, the kennel attendants, whether or not we had work for them, we were going to pay them. And that, immediately gave them, some relief. A lot of these folks had been impacted themselves personally. Their homes had been lost, or they had lost, personal belongings, or they were helping family members or neighbors. And this took a huge burden off of them. It wasn't inexpensive. This was a 7-figure, all said, storm pay expense for the business. Very, very difficult. Going back, in the millions of decisions that we made, that was easy. And you do it every time again, especially given our recovery trajectory. So giving them financial security, restoring their financial security is very, very important. The other thing we did was we had them give us a list of all their personal belongings that were in the hospital, and we didn't replace them, but we reimbursed them for the value. So we wrote them all a check for whatever stuff was in the hospital, from textbooks to personal belongings, everything. And so we cataloged it and reimbursed them there, again, to take off the level of stress. The next thing we wanted to do, because the question is, okay, you're paying me today. What about tomorrow? What about the next day? How long is this going to take? Building a hospital is not quick. So we wanted to we wanted to get credibility as leaders that we could restore this business and we could get them back to work. And so I'm going to pose another question. So you've got 239 employees. You went from 60,000 aggregate square feet down to 6. What are some things that you might do to get credibility as a business leader, to make them feel, hey, these guys got it, they understand it, they're on top of it. Their wheelhouse was running the hospital. Now they've got to rebuild the hospital very quickly. What are some things that you might think about as a business leader, to kind of gain credibility as a business leader?
I think that's the pickle, right? I think that's the big question, because you sit there and when you say 60,000 square feet down to 6,000 square feet, and I mean, my stomach drops when I hear that, because I think it must have been sardines. It must have just the level of stress. And I think that would be the freeze point. Like, what can you do? But go ahead, Jane.
Perhaps ask them where they think you should start to get their engagement and their level of commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, communication, reaching out and asking for their ideas was a huge part of it. I think, some of the bigger picture strategic stuff, I think was challenging, but certainly the employees were instrumental in helping us figure that out. That's a great thought. Absolutely.
Joe,
you
did too. Comment?
I'm
No?
sorry.
I saw Joe unmute. I thought perhaps he had a comment he wanted to make.
No, I was going to say, as a business leader, I would give them confidence that they're going to get through this, right? Make sure that they are understanding that, this is detrimental, but give them the confidence as a leader that they're going to rebuild this and get things back in order.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, giving them that confidence, and then not only telling them, hey, we're going to get this done, we're going to get through this, but actually getting some wins under our belt. And so what we did was we reopened our neurology facility very quickly, even though we didn't have access to our practice management software system because that was underwater. We went paper records, we used QuickBooks Online, and we started seeing patients and clients as quickly as we could in our neurology center. The next thing we did, the following weekend was Labor Day. And, which is an important holiday from an emergency perspective. A lot of vets are closed, and we wanted to make sure we were there for the community. So we relocated our emergency service over to our neurology building. We also, I sent out a letter to the referring vets, effectively, asking them for help, saying we need hospital space. If you have any space that you can give us, let me know. And we had over 50 hospitals within the community right back saying, you can come here and stay as long as you need to. And so then that triggered the process of going and talking to all of these veterinarians, looking at their hospital, seeing which services might be suitable. We ended up partnering with 9 other hospitals to put services out there temporarily. And that was that's a talk in and of itself, the logistics associated with that. Also, mobile surgery was another piece, and offering for our surgeons to go into general practices to do surgeries in their operating rooms. Lastly, finding space, finding a location, because people were very concerned. They say, well, my commute is 30 minutes now. What if it's going to be 50 minutes? Where's this new hospital going to be? And that was a huge concern. And so, finding a space for a temporary hospital that we built very quickly. We moved into in November, and then also a permanent space, which is right next door for our forever home. That was also really, really important to us as well. And so all of those things, and moving at breakneck speed, with changes literally happening daily, helps reassure that folks that we were serious about this, and we were committed to it, and every single day more and more people got back to work, and that gave them assurance. The last thing from a people standpoint was sort of doing something that's above and beyond, and we put together the Compassion First Family Fund, and this was basically a fund that was contributed to primarily by Compassion First employees, and then there was grant applications that our employees, the Gulf Coast employees, could apply for these grants if they had received, if they were victims of Hurricane Harvey hardship, personal belongings, their home, that sort of thing. So we raised over $50,000, and that was, like I said, primarily Compassion First employees, also some industry partners as well, members of the community, and that was hugely helpful to the folks that were hurting most, where they were underinsured or they didn't have any insurance and that sort of thing. So that was kind of the focus on employees and our people. The next thing I want to talk a little bit about is communication, because obviously with this level of transition and uncertainty, communication became super important. And so during the flood, during the storm, we were all communicating via this app called GroupMe, and admittedly, I wasn't quite sure how this was going to work out. Everybody's sort of connected on this app and they're chatting, and very quickly when the storm hit, it became a connection of employees to each other. When they needed help or when they needed advice, or if they even just wanted to listen and provide words of encouragement to each other, it served as a support group for each other as it was occurring. And so that was really, really important in getting through the storm. And then we lost our email because the server for the email server went underwater. So then we continued to use that. Once everything was restored, communication became even more important. So we had a number of town halls where we rented out, the top floor of Maggiano's and had town halls to get the entire hospital together. When you got 260 people, very, very difficult with a 24-hour facility. One of the first times ever that we all got together in this fashion. We also, Catherine helped tremendously with this, actually, with messaging to the employees, as well as messaging to the referring veterinarians. And not just matter of fact, this is what's going on, but, because this is a very emotional time for everybody, heartfelt messages being just raw with everybody, and not sugarcoating it, saying this is the way it is, and we, this is what we know, and we appreciate your support, and really try to keep everybody informed. Things were changing so rapidly because it was, we were starting up new services in our neurology facility. Then we were moving out into the community, and then we were moving to this temporary space, and there was just so many different moving parts that communication became super, super important. The last thing, because I know we've got about 7 minutes, I want to make sure there's time for questions and things. Last thing I want to talk about is our partnership with Compassion First Pet Hospitals. And so I'm going to pose another question to the group. Because this, when we partnered with Compassion First in 2016, we were in a good spot. We were growing rapidly. We had literally tripled our business in 4 years. We were doing well, and we decided to partner with Compassion First. And so I'm just curious, and there's a lot of industry consolidation going on out there. What is your thoughts, or why would a group, partner with, with a kind of a corporate aggregator, or, a group of growing collection or network of veterinary hospitals?
I think it's not fair for Catherine and I to answer the question because we know them. We know that group well, so.
Sure, yes.
Well, probably because there is more resources available, being that they have a larger scope.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think you're reading my notes, actually, because you're dead on. For us, when we decided to join Compassion First, we fell in love with the vision, to create the Mayo Clinic of veterinary medicine. We wanted to be a part of that. We felt like our goals were very aligned. And what you just mentioned, access to the depth of resources was not something that was on the forefront of our mind, but became absolutely critical to our survival. And we would not have made it through it without exactly what you said. So, access to experts in marketing, PR, IT, purchasing, HR, accounting, finance, safety. These are all, functional experts that a standalone hospital, you don't have the ability to have all of these functional experts level of capacity that Compassion First has. We had daily meetings, single day for the last 8 months. We just stopped them last week. We changed our focus more to construction just this past week. But every single day we had a meeting on the calendar with members of each one of the leaders of each one of those functional areas. And that level of collaboration and daily communication was absolutely critical, because at any given day, at least 3 of them were sort of on the forefront in terms of enabling our progress. And so access to those resources and the depth of knowledge was the only thing that saved us. We would not have made it through it without that. And so it's, wasn't something that was inherently obvious to us. It was obvious to you, perhaps, Deb. In 2016 or even middle of 2017, but the perspective dramatically changed. No one says, the access to functional experts in the face of unforeseen tragedy, as sort of top reason. But that was absolutely critical, and without that, like I said, I think the outcome would have been very, very different. So I think we only have a couple of minutes left, and so we have 2 minutes left, and so to leave back for some questions to see if there were anything I've said or haven't said, or any thoughts or anything from the group.
Yeah, Ryan, I'm curious. Tell me about Gulf Coast business insurance coverage. Did you find out you were underinsured? Did you have flood insurance, business interruption insurance?
Yeah, it's a long and complicated answer. I think the short answer is you never have enough. And the long answer is it's been a long road, but we feel satisfied with sort of where we ended up. I think that, the business interruption impact was dramatically larger, predicted to be much larger in the days after the flood than it actually has been in the end, because of our recovery has been quite rapid. From a revenue perspective, we're very close to what we did a year ago in a fourth of the hospital space. And so, there's still a lot of services that we don't have. We don't have a linear accelerator. We don't have nuclear medicine. We still have a lot of our services working in partner hospitals, and it's been challenging. But yeah, I would say never have enough insurance, but we're satisfied with sort of where we ended up.
I have a question.
I got a question, Rose.
Sure.
Why don't you go, Pat, and then Joe, you can go next.
Well, my question was, did you have any learnings from the communication that you did with the whole group? You said you'd never really met together as a whole group. Is that something you're going to continue to do because you found it was useful? Or is it something that really didn't seem to make any difference now that you're more on a day-to-day basis?
No, it made a huge difference. I feel like, my personal relationships with the leaders improved dramatically. And it's enabled for much better collaboration moving forward. Because the thing is you go from an independent or a collection of independent hospitals that have to be self-sufficient to all of a sudden relying on functional experts. For me, going through this, it's really opened up the doors to lean on those experts. Which has then it actually expanded my own personal capacity. We just took on 5 new hospitals in Dallas, which takes more of my personal time. And being able to lean on those folks and the relationships I think that were forged along the way has really helped be more efficient and more effective as a leader. And also it's helped within the functional areas, the hospital level, and the network level experts have formed greater relationships as well. So it has been something that has sort of transcended just the Harvey recovery.
So let's let Joe ask his, and then we have a question for Maureen in the chat that I want to be sure we answer as well.
Okay. So, quick question for you. How long did it take you to actually get your technology back up and running? Were you able to recover fully, or did you lose data? Are we talking days, months, years? And how did that impact you? And did it still impacting you?
Yeah, it took about 2 weeks, because it took us 2 weeks to really get back the practice management, the software data. And it definitely impacted us because, backups weren't every minute, so there was a gap of data there between when our last backup was and when the flood happened. So it's something that it was challenging, quite frankly. But I think we did the best we could. And I think patient care was never compromised, even as we were doing paper medical records. We probably weren't billing as much as we should have, because we didn't have that all built perfectly. But we were taking care of patients and we were communicating with our clients to a high level.
So just real quick, we're at our 25-minute mark. So anyone who needs to jump off certainly can. Ryan has agreed to stay on for an after party, as we like to call them, for about another 10 minutes or so. And then any other additional questions that we don't get answered in this time frame, then he will go ahead and answer those for you, and we'll send those to you. But if anyone needs to jump off, you certainly can. And then I didn't know, Joe, did you have a second part to your question before we go to Maureen's?
Well, I was just asking you, are you still, so did you actually lose data through that process? I mean, so you said that there was a gap of coverage of a backup, and then did it impact you? So the last question I really have is, can I share that story with some of my clients and kind of share this forward, I guess you say?
Yeah, I mean, I by and large, everything was recovered. I mean, there were some things that were not, and we've since kind of made it through that.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it certainly increased our kind of protocols for backup and recovery and that sort of thing. And we're moving up to a new practice management software too, which is I think going to help with that situation as well. You can certainly share anything that I've said today. There's nothing too crazy. I don't think I've spilled the beans on anything. So for sure, feel free to share whatever you'd like.
So
thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. Maureen's question was, any changes that are included in the design if rebuilding in the same area? So you guys are investing quite a bit in the redesign. So talk a little bit about that and how it's different from what the first building looked like to ensure this doesn't happen again.
Oh, well, first of all, I mean, this building, there's no way it's going to flood, and it's built up on 4 feet of concrete. So, I mean, the flooding, and that's the thing. I mean, the litmus test is, did you flood during Harvey? Okay, if you made it through Harvey, you're fine, because the whole city was underwater. From an interior design perspective, it's going to be light years better than the old Gulf Coast building. Gulf Coast, we moved into that building in 1996. I say we, it was well before my time, but it was all independent practices, and all practices that were meant to be self-sufficient. We had 41 exam rooms spread out all over the hospital. We had 4 different lobbies. We had 3 different ICUs, and we were able to provide the highest level of patient care in spite of those infrastructure inefficiencies. The hospital that we're moving to is going to remedy all of that, and it's going to be promoting collaboration. It's going to be actually one lobby. All the exam rooms will be together. There's going to be one kind of ICU, emergency flowing into ICU right off the lobby. All the imaging is going to be consolidated instead of spread out across the hospital. All the operating rooms are going to be together. So the level of efficiency is going to be greater. The level of collaboration among specialists is going to be greater. The client experience is going to be much better. And so everybody's really, really excited. And every day the conversation is how quickly can we get in there, because we're just chomping at the bit to get into this beautiful new hospital, which is going to be light years beyond what we had before. And like I said, I mean, what we had before was incredible, but this is really going to be the next level of medical care, client service, and collaboration and sort of labor efficiency.
Cool. So I have to ask. I get to do this because I get to ask questions too. Okay, I've just been dying to ask the whole question too, because you had to triage your own emergency, really, right? You're so used to triaging other people's emergencies with pets, so now you're triaging your own. And there've been some great questions from the group. What I really want to know is, how did this change you personally? You know, what did you discover about yourself as a person, as a leader, as you were going through this and trying to lead this tremendous team of people to the other side?
Sure, absolutely. So, you know, instinctively, you know, the moment I knew that we were not moving back into this facility, you know, I kind of had this flash forward of the next 18 months of what needed to be done. You know, and it wasn't like everything was planned out, but I knew this was going to be about a year and a half. And I immediately thought of all the stuff, all the tasks that needed to happen, the big picture and the minutia. You know, and I immediately kind of thought about how do we move through this as quickly as possible. I think one of the things that that I probably underestimated is you know, everybody's ability and their capacity, emotional capacity to withstand change. And you know, I think we did well with the communication, but I think that there were, you know, certain folks, you know, whether it be personally or just, you know, their work life being kind of turned upside down, you know, you kind of like, okay, so we're going to do emergency here, and that's going to be here with neurology. Okay, that's great. All right, you guys know what you're doing. Move on to the next thing. But you know, it was sort of a day-to-day stress that was really wearing on the employees, and it still is, and it's really, really challenging. And so instead of just, you know, what is the path to normalcy, you know, and all the steps from a business perspective, it's checking in with employees. Are you okay? How are you doing with this? What is going on with you in your work life, in your home life? And I think, you know, encouraging the team, you know, because we have several, you know, layers of leadership, you know, and making sure that becomes part of the culture, because it's not just, okay, this is where your job is now, go do it. It's you know, understanding what are your personal struggles. We did do, I think, a fairly good job at some of these things when they were identified. You know, bringing in grief counselors, you know, having a hotline available for people to talk about it. But I think that for me, you know, my instinct was, you know, get us back to normal as quickly as possible. The tasks of getting the business there, but, you know, careful consideration for what each individual employee is going through, I think is something that was really, really eye-opening to me and impactful, you know, to me personally as a leader.
So I don't mean to chime in and give too much personal on you, Ryan, but you also were a new dad at the time.
Yeah, I had a newborn, you know, basically had my fourth, I have 4 girls, my fourth at the end of June. So I had a 2-month-old. So it was interesting. I mean, I feel very fortunate that my own personal home didn't flood as well, because I'd probably be in a straitjacket somewhere and then we wouldn't be talking right now. So it allowed me to, you know, really focus on the business, you know, and my wife did an incredible job at home and kind of picking up, you know, doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But yeah, I mean, it was, you know, kind of working long hours and then coming home and having sleepless nights. And so it was kind of a time of my life that I kind of want to forget, honestly. You know, I mean, it's been so impactful to me personally, but you know, going through it every day felt like a year. So you know, it's we still have a tremendous, you know, we've written many chapters in this, I think, wonderful book of recovery for Gulf Coast and for Compassion First. But we've got a lot of chapters yet to go, and you know, we won't sort of kind of declare victory, I guess, until we're in the new building and smiling faces and happy clients and helping, you know, patients and you know, looking back and saying we are better now than we ever would have been had this not happened, you know, and that's the goal. The goal is not just to recover or to get back to 90%. The goal is to get back to 125% or 150%, and really, you know, define this hospital and this, you know, this part of the veterinary community as it should be, not as it evolved, you know, slowly over, you know, 28 years. So, you know, I kind of tell people, and they look at me funny. I say, this is, you know, very few people will have the opportunity to say that they lived through and they contributed to and were an integral part of the rebuilding of Gulf Coast Veterinary Specialists. They're like, opportunity, you know, because it's hard work, you know, but my hope is that, you know, as all the employees go to ACVS or VEX or ACVIM, that they wear this like a badge of honor to have gone through this and contributed to it, because it truly has been a contribution of, you know, every single member of Gulf Coast, every single member of the shared services group with Compassion First, as well as all the employees within the Compassion First network and the veterinary community in Houston that had confidence in us and faith in us to recover and to do it, you know, quickly. So, you know, I see it as an opportunity, and hopefully, you know, many of them do too. It's one of those things that hopefully you look back on and say that was hard, but it was unique, and I'm very proud of it. So that's really the goal.
So, any final questions before our party comes to a close? Okay. With that, everyone, I want to cheers and wish you the very best day. Thank you so much, Ryan. This is good. I think this is really powerful to understand what we can be doing as leaders in all facets of the business, and remember that, you know, we're people first, and that we all need to, you know, be taken care of. And that is assuming, to actually Pat's point, we're all the animals safe. So
yeah.
animals first, people second, but we get it. So everyone, cheers. Have a great day.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers. Thank you. Take care. Enjoy your day.
Fantastic. I love that, Ryan. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was so good.
Oh, he left us. I have a quote that I have to get on him later. Okay, so hang on. You, if we can.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. So I sent you a deck. So I need you to see the deck.